Engaging conversation on the most urgent problem of our day and what you can do about it.
Now, the End Abortion Podcast by Priests for Life.
7:39, 21 minutes away from 8 o'clock as we wrap up Morning Light today on this marvelous Monday across the Salt and Light Catholic Radio Network with two special guests in the St. Gabriel studio. We have Father Frank Pavone. He's the National Director for Priests for Life, along with Janet Morana. And Janet, you've got a very long list of things that you have on your resume. You're the Executive Director for Priests for Life.
That's right.
Co-founder of Silent No More.
Yes.
So Melissa Hemphill comes once a month and talks to us here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's our regional coordinator here in Idaho, and we're very pleased to have her. And, anyone listening right now, if you haven't seen Melissa's story, just go to silentnomore.com and you'll click on Idaho, and her testimony is up there. And, as anyone listening right now, too, knows someone who's hurting from an abortion, just go to abortionforgiveness.com, put in your zip code, will get you to healing. And then maybe God's calling you to speak out like Melissa.
Absolutely. You've also seen Janet on EWTN. She's a co-host of the Catholic View for Women, and you've seen her on Bookmark with Doug Keck. We have a couple of her books here, and just on and on and on.
Yeah, well, both my books, Recall Abortion and The Shockwaves, Abortion's Widest Circle of Victims, are available at the EWTN Religious Catalog. So we have to give a shout out to EWTN.
Absolutely. And then you both do a show together, don't you, on EWTN?
Defending Life.
Defending Life. How often is that?
Now, that show actually is a show that Mother Angelica asked Father Pavone to do. It's one of the few series that are still left on the network that were inspired by Mother directly. Father was in Birmingham, Alabama back in the 90s, and they brought her by to see Mother Angelica, brought him there. And after the show, she did the live show with Mother. The next morning, he came into her office, and she literally picked up the phone, called Chris Harrington, who at the time was producing things, and said, "We need a pro-life show, and I want Father to do it. Let's get going on that." And so Defending Life was born. I think the first aired, right, Father?
First aired in January of 95.
95.
Yes, so it'll be 25 years in a few months. But that airs every week, several episodes, several airings a week. And, it has covered every dimension of the pro-life movement. We have interviewed every major leader of the pro-life movement.
Right.
We have beautiful testimonies of what people can do to end abortion. And Defending Life has been, therefore, the longest-running, farthest-reaching program on abortion that's ever been made.
Yeah.
So yesterday afternoon, hot, but yet
but
a lot of people
awesome.
came out and supported the Stanton ribbon cutting. So
beautiful
give us a recap of yesterday afternoon.
Well, if someone would ask me, I would say there were somewhere between 300 and 400 people, even though it was 100 degrees.
With how hot it was, that is just
amazing. And we were literally in the sun. I mean, it was just raining down on us, so to speak. And of course, all the talks were very inspiring. But, I've known Brandy Swindell for decades, and she is so inspiring and energetic. And when you think about, she had this vision, and look what she's done. Because, to go toe-to-toe like she does with Planned Parenthood, that's what we need, really to push back, because Stanton is providing real health care for women, not Planned Parenthood.
Right.
And I know from the testimonies of the women how badly they're treated in Planned Parenthood. And so many of the women, you listen to the testimonies, what they needed was hope. And I love that that's part of the mantra of Stanton, is to bring hope. That's what most women need to turn away from abortion. Usually they're being pressured by a boyfriend or a parent, and sometimes even a husband. We have testimonies like that, and so they just need someone to say, you know what, you're a strong woman. You can do this. We're going to give you the hope you need and the resources you need. And that's what Brandy's doing and it's not just, too often people think of the pregnancy resource centers and they just think of, diapers and formula and all that. This is beyond all that. This is real health care for women and whatever they're going to need and beyond. And so I was delighted to be able to come. My first trip to Idaho and to come for this, for me, was a great honor. It
hard
really
one
was.
to top.
Yeah.
Well, and we had, we went out for about 90 minutes with speeches and prayers. We had the Mayor Tammy of Meridian. We had Congressman Russ Fulcher, who is a wonderful voice in the U.S. House of Representatives. We had dinner with him afterwards, and we were just so grateful for his presence, his remarks. We had about 20 pastors showed up. That was, one of the most inspiring moments was at the conclusion of the rally, after all the speeches, and I was privileged to share a few thoughts. All the pastors joined me at the door of this facility, and in biblical tradition, we anointed it with oil being a sign of strength and of mission. And of course, it's the word Christ, the Messiah, means anointed. So we anointed the door of this building, asking the Holy Spirit to come upon all who would ever come to it, all who will be served, all who will be helped, and all who will work there as volunteers and staff. And the whole thing was just very, very strong with the presence of God and the presence of his people of life.
That is beautiful. And I love that Stanton's growing. I mean, 95, when your radio show started, how many was Stanton Healthcare around?
No.
Right.
No. And even the number of pregnancy centers nationwide has grown so much. Father, back in 95, there were thousands of abortion mills all over
now
this
there are
country.
about 600.
Now there's only about 600, and now there's thousands of pregnancy resource
They
centers.
outnumber
Praise
the
God.
abortion facilities 5-1.
No.
That is amazing
Yeah.
because there's a need for it.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that our society, the change is slow, and any change that's going to be sustainable, unfortunately, is slow in the culture we live in.
Right.
But you guys have seen the effects over the last 25 years. So maybe just
Absolutely.
share some of those really powerful moments that have really impacted you and kept you on this journey over that last 25 years.
Well, I think the first thing I have to say is back in 1995, when we had St. John Paul II issued Evangelium Vitae, which, by the way, next year we celebrate the 25th anniversary.
Yes.
I remember that was during the Clinton. Take your minds back. We had the Clinton administration. We had the face laws to stop people from being outside in front of the clinic. And it was a terrible atmosphere in our country. And when that encyclical was issued, I said to Father Frank, I said, oh my goodness, the Holy Father is blessing our work, giving us our marching orders. So I just remember that being a very pivotal moment, right, Father, when that encyclical was issued. And of course, at Priests for Life, we have a study guide for that. We're going to be reissuing it come next year for the anniversary. And brothers and sisters, if you have never read the Gospel of Life, Evangelium Vitae, it's available online. Just Google it. The document it's so
the Magna
rich.
Carta
It
for
really
the
is.
pro-life movement.
And especially, we can jump over to this, Father. There's stuff that tells us about the elections too in Evangelium
Oh boy!
Vitae.
And those were some of the high points over these years too. The pro-life victories we've had in the political arena. It really, really matters. And I told the folks gathered there yesterday that we're currently under the most pro-life administration we've ever had. And that's making a big difference. But we're not afraid to talk about these things and to because the church calls us. John Paul called us. The U.S. bishops have called us to political responsibility, educating, being active in the process, educating voters on the issues, getting out there, and that has made a difference over these years. And then, of course, we've had also at the same time Evangelium Vitae came out, we had a lot of personal interaction with Mother Teresa, now Saint Teresa of Calcutta, and she directly and personally encouraged the ministry of Priests for Life because people want to see their clergy involved in defending life. They expect their clergy to be involved. And she just loved our work and blessed our work. And we used to call her on the telephone. I'd pick up the phone and she would answer it. And say, Mother, ask for advice about this, that, and the other thing.
We have a beautiful letter hanging in our office from Mother, framed. And, of course, one of the miraculous medals that she always had in her habit in her pocket, and she gave one of those when Father went. I never got to personally meet Mother Teresa. Father did, but he got to go to Calcutta to do some lessons for her sisters, and she gave Father one of those medals. So we have it all in a beautiful frame, the letter in her handwriting, and she just said that every priest should be part of Priests for Life, and she blessed our work and said how important it was.
That's beautiful. You guys travel a lot. You're here in the Treasure Valley over the weekend. How much do you travel? Not only the country, but it sounds like the world, Father Frank.
I'm on the road like 75% of the time.
Wow.
I've got several trips a week, and Janet's not far behind, actually.
No, and actually just recently in the past few months, I've had 3 international trips. In April, I was in Mexico City for abortion recovery leaders. It was called by Sea
Ceylon,
Ceylon, which is the
of
bishops
Latin America,
of Latin America.
Okay.
And it was awesome. I spoke there about, of course, shockwaves and Silent No More was the theme why they brought me in. And then in May, I was at the March for Life in Canada. They have a March for Life up there like we do here in the States. And we also, with Silent No More, we have a big presence up there. We have a regional coordinator. We've been up in Canada over 15 years with Silent No More. And then later in May, I went to Jamaica with Father Richard Holong because they're trying to make abortion legal suddenly, to decriminalize it in Jamaica. So he brought myself and Alveda King in, and we came in with one of the producers, Unplanned. And we screened Unplanned in about 3 churches. Thousands of people saw it. But now, thanks be to God, later this summer, it's going to be in the movie theaters in Jamaica and other islands in the Caribbean. So I was part of that whole initiative. And let's see, that's 1, 2, 3. Oh, and then Rome. In July, I was in Rome, which was about close to 100 degrees there, too, believe it or not. And I taught a class or two at the Regina Apostolorum, which is a pontifical university. And in between, a few things around the state. So I keep busy like Father.
So Idaho is a conservative state,
Yes.
and we pray that it stays that way. But obviously, as you travel the country, you're going to run into opposition. And when you do, when you meet those people who are yelling and screaming their pro-abortion point of view, how do you try and reason with that? How do you handle those situations when you're out there in the streets?
Well, when someone's screaming at you, you can't have a dialogue at that point. But when someone seriously wants to discuss the issue, you can, make some points. And what I always like to do is focus in on the woman, because that's what they think we don't care about. We only care about the baby, not the woman. And I said to them, you know what? Did you ever pay attention to the voices of women, what happens after abortion? Did you ever look at women going into an abortion clinic? They're not going in there with their hands up in the air proclaiming their freedom of choice. Most of them, their eyes are down and they're upset. They're not wanting really to have this abortion. They feel trapped and confused. And I said, and how is abortion good health care? Usually, if you try to talk to them about the procedure itself, most people know nothing about it. And if you say to them, tell me the last time you went to a doctor and you were told you're going to have an operation, some sort of procedure. Didn't you have to go to the hospital a few days before and get some pre-admission testing? Didn't the doctor have your medical history to know, like, are you a diabetic? Are you taking any medications? When you go into an abortion clinic, and this is Planned Parenthood, brothers and sisters, and I guarantee you it happens right here in Idaho, they don't ask one medical question of you. Not one. I can tell you by the testimonies of the women. And there are women who have died in these clinics. Why? Well, if you don't have a medical history of a patient, you're going to perform a surgery. Yes, abortion is surgery. And you're going to have complications. So I think talking to them about abortion and focusing on the procedure itself, most people who are pro-choice have never seen an abortion. You can challenge them. We can go to our website, and see the images. And we have actually diagrams that are of the medical procedure that were done for court cases and so on like that. They're not pro-life diagrams. They're medical diagrams. When you say, Father, I mean, really, when you talk about it as medicine, which it's not, I think you can diffuse them a lot. And and they also have to challenge them. Why is it that in every state where we try to pass laws to protect women in abortion clinics, meaning women's right to know laws, parental consent laws, things that would inform women, aren't women smart enough to be informed about the procedure? Why won't you have this woman's right to know? And why don't the abortion clinics let them see their ultrasound? See, they do an ultrasound in an abortion clinic only for a search and destroy mission for the doctor, so he can see the baby to kill it. But if a woman is a strong woman and she should have this knowledge, why do they turn that screen away that she cannot? And I have testimonies of women who asked to see it and were refused to see that ultrasound picture. Yeah. So sometimes
because they
you
know
have to
how
just
graphic it is.
Exactly. Well, they know if you see that baby, you're going to bond with that baby. I'm sure Brandy could tell you, women who get to see that ultrasound, 90% of them choose life because they bond with that child.
And pertinent to also what you're asking, the country's more polarized now on abortion than ever. There were times in the past that there were structured dialogues with people on the other side. Janet and I have established good friendships with key people on the other side of this issue, and we have modeled what dialogue can look like, what authentic friendship and communication can be like. But nowadays, the other side is less willing to talk. And their counter demonstrations, by the way, have petered out to almost nothing.
Right.
They don't want to engage in debates. I mean, it's like there's a wall of separation more than I've ever seen. But at the same time, more people on the grassroots who have considered themselves pro-choice over the years are in fact coming over to our side more than ever. So we see a very interesting dynamic here going on right now.
And of course, well, as you know, in January, when, of course, in New York, where we're originally from, Cuomo and his cohort there passed that extreme law. I think when they lit that tower, Freedom Tower, up in pink and celebrated it, that was over the top. It exploded over social media, and our phones were ringing off the hook at our office, people saying, how did this happen? How did this happen? And I said, brothers and sisters, wake up. Abortion has been legal through all 9 months of pregnancy since Roe v. Wade.
Roe, yeah.
That's what Roe and Doe did to us.
Yeah.
The thing that people don't realize in New York State was, New York, it was legal before Roe, right? Okay, and when they made abortion legal, Dr. Nathanson and his people, it was only up to 24 weeks. That law stayed on the books all these years, and they've been wanting to increase it through all 9 months for many years. But fortunately, the Republicans were holding one of the state houses, and the Democrats had the other. Well, when we lost those votes in the state in November of 2018, then they jumped right on that and expanded it.
And these radical pro-abortion laws through all 9 months of pregnancy, like have been passed in New York, Illinois, several other states, are not a sign of the strength of the other side. They're a sign of their weakness. They know the courts are slipping out of their control. Again, thanks to President Trump and the Republican Senate, the courts are slipping out of their control. And they're desperate. They say, we better grab as much as we can get right now before the courts are all against us. And it's not a sign of their strength at all. And they've always been radically in support of abortion throughout pregnancy.
And when you said before, in Idaho we're kind of safe, we're a Republican state. Don't take anything for granted.
No,
At one time, New York State, we had a right to life party line even. Can you imagine that in New York State? Right to life party line. And we lost it because more and more people stopped voting on that line. And so, you've got to stay strong here in Idaho. We're counting on you. We really are. So everybody listening, if you're not registered to vote, get out and get registered. Register as many like-minded people. Because I've heard from the local people here, you've got a lot of people coming in here from California with their liberal ideas.
And we're next door to Oregon and Washington.
Exactly.
We call it the left coast.
The left
Well,
coast.
that's what I call it. I have a
Exactly.
daughter who lives in California. I call it the left coast too. And so you can't take anything for granted. You've got to stay strong and keep registering more voters, and everyone has to come out and vote. It's just so important.
And next year is a very key election.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
we have, on top of our state house elections, it's a presidential election in 2020.
Yeah.
And register to vote. And in Idaho, if you're not aware of how the system works, it's closed primaries here. So you have to be registered to vote in the Republican primary. And we can talk about that with Christian Welp from the Idaho Catholic Network.
No, I'm so happy you're addressing these things. And, in just a couple of weeks, just to show the impact of elections, in literally a couple of weeks from now, the second largest funding stream for Planned Parenthood, Title X,
gonna be
will
turned
be
off.
shut off. President Trump has stood firm and has closed a loophole in the law, and the Title X money now is not going to go to any facilities that perform, provide, or in any way are associated with abortion. So we're
That's a
making
win.
real progress.
So, Father, what can the average Christian sitting in church on Sunday, how can they make a difference in trying to change this culture of death that we're living in and try to turn that tide and make it a culture of life? I think sometimes we just feel too small for such a big...
Think of it this way. First of all, it's never been easier to save a life than it is right now. If you just can lead people to, like Janet said before, first of all, people around us who are suffering from abortion, abortionforgiveness.com. People around us who might think they need an abortion. Pregnancycenters.org is another simple website. Just knowing those two things right away, you can lead people to alternatives to abortion and healing after abortion. You're making a big impact if you do that. Prayercampaign.org. That's our pro-life prayer campaign. You can pray every day in accordance with the liturgical cycle and the seasons of the year. We have all kinds of pro-life prayers for the whole year. Just starting with those three things. And then, of course, keeping informed about the issue and communicating with your legislators. We've got this whole effort today, by the way, we have a special effort to get the members in the House to pass this law to protect babies from infanticide. And you stay connected with groups like Priests for Life and other pro-life groups, and you'll know, when you need to make a call, when you need to send an email. Things are developing constantly every day so that the voice of each and every individual really does count. And if you're connected with a pro-life group, we'll be able to tell you when and what kind of messages need to be sent to our elected representatives to help us make continued progress on this.
Yeah, and on our website, right on the home page, we have action alerts that we put up every week. So we always have something you can do.
Exactly.
Very easy things. We give you how to contact your representatives. And, like we were just having dinner last night with your congressman, and just because he does everything right doesn't mean he doesn't need to hear from you. You have to say thank you.
Back him up.
Back him up.
I know, Russ. You reach out to him, say hi. He is a man who wants to know who you are, what issues are important to you are. And I think a lot of our legislators and representatives and senators, they want to hear from you, whether or not locally here in the state or the ones who are representing us back in D.C. Reach out to them. I just threw up, we have a Facebook Live feed. We've got all these links on there. Check it out. Make sure you check out Stanton Healthcare's website, Priests for Life. We've got the Idaho Legislature. We also have Silent No More. And then we also put up the document with Pope John Paul II earlier.
Oh, great. And of course, if you haven't done so and if you haven't been able to, I know Stanton really can use your support right now to get that new center up to code, because they're going to make the criteria there very high. They're going to bring in people to say that it's a medical clinic and it's certified. So I know they're still raising money to complete that job, and being right across from Planned Parenthood, it's awesome. It really is.
Yes.
So as we wrap up the program here, are there ways that our listeners, can they help Priest for Life? What are some things that you guys need?
Absolutely. Well, we need people to sign up for our action alerts. StopAbortionNow.org is our action alert. And the reason we need people is that when the legislators turn to us and say, hey, we need support for this bill or opposition to that bill, we need to be able to mobilize at a moment's notice an army of people. You can help us by signing up for that. StopAbortionNow.org. I'd say that's the main thing you can do. And just spread the word about the resources we have, the books, the videos, the material. Connect with us on social media. The more people are connected in this movement, the more it helps us all.
And finally, reach out to other family members you might have that live in other states and get them registered to vote. Because that's why I would tell people, go down your Christmas card list. Is a great way to do it. Go down your Christmas card list and send them a national voter registration form and said, hey, get in the game, National voter registration form and said, hey, get in the game,